is up, everyone? I am Joe DeHoyos. I'm host of Beyond the Woodline. Man, it's been a while since I really talked to you guys and seen you guys, and I put out a couple of shows this year. I haven't really done a lot like I've been wanting to. I just had so much going on. Life gets in the way. Uh, now I've got so much going on in my personal life. All good stuff, nothing bad, nothing dramatic. Just life gets in the way sometimes, and uh, but yeah, man, I've just been doing a lot of different things. I got a lot of projects. Work, of course, keeps me busy. But made a decision about this show because at one point I was like, do I just quit because I wasn't able to really devote the time that I wanted to into this show? Talked to my wife about it. She's like, no, you've been doing this for a long time. Keep on doing it. You like doing it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to keep on doing the show. I've got the next 3 weeks after this booked. I'm really starting to book for July. So, I think everything's going to work out great. I've got people eager to come on. I've got people from different genres of these strange and mysterious world that we live in. I've got people from the cryptid world, the paranormal, UFOs, just a lot of strange stuff, and that's the stuff that I really wanted to tackle because beforehand I was also doing other kind of weird stuff that, I don't mean weird in a negative sense either, just, all the strange stuff that we're involved with day to day. But I kind of want to focus on what I call the big three, the cryptid world, the paranormal, and then the UFO and alien stuff. So that's what I've been doing. And I've got some great guests lined up for you guys. But right now, I've got with me Mr. Mark Childers of the Cryptid Crew. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good, Joe. How about you?
Man, I'm doing great, man. I've had a chance to talk to you a little bit before we got on the air. Happy Father's Day again. And to all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day to you too.
Thank you.
Miss Sandra. Miss Sandra has been with me since day one. So, Miss Sandra, I'm so glad you tuned in. I was wondering if you were going to tune in. So, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate that very much. I'm going to try to stick to my regular schedules on Sunday evenings. So, keep an eye out for the show, please, Miss Sandra. But yeah, Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into this crazy subject that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, Joe, thank you for having me on, by the way.
Yes,
Yeah, I guess I got started at a young age watching documentaries that would come on TV occasionally, seeing the Patterson Gimlin film at a young age. And, just I guess intrigued by the mystery of the subject, kind of like, most of us are. And when I was growing up, documentaries and television shows, there were not a lot of those on at the time. So when Nessie came on or Bigfoot or something like that, you were glued to the TV. And kind of went a few years and life happens, you grow up a little bit and have family and so forth. And I guess it didn't kick back in until one of my kids brought a book home from the library, and it was Patty on the front of the book. And I read the book, I believe, probably once, maybe twice. I don't think my son read it at all, and so I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And then about that time, I think it was Monster Quest came on, and Monsters and Mysteries, and then when Finding Bigfoot came on, I was like a kid in a candy shop, So I was just so excited to see something like that come on TV and listen to these stories. And probably on that show, town hall meetings were probably part of one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
But yeah, just got into it and was really, really enjoying the subject 2 or 3 years ago. And we got a recording on our family land. It's my mother's land, and a gentleman lives on that land. And he recorded something at 2 or 3 in the morning, and it was an accident that we ran into each other at an event. And it was a town hall they were having, and a group of guys were going around through the Southeast, these small towns. And I left to get some coffee because I had a migraine, and came back. I wasn't sure if I was going to go back, and I'm glad I did. It was just a little bit after lunch, and one of the guys was doing a presentation, and the lights came on, and I was standing on the back wall because I got in late, and my neighbor stood up. The gentleman stood up, and I was like, what in the world are they doing here? And so he walked to the back of the little civic center, and I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, we've got a recording here. We want somebody to listen to it. I said, is that why y'all, you guys are here? And they were like, yeah. So I listened to it, and Joe, on a cell phone outside with people walking around, traffic going by, I knew the recording was organic. I knew it was something that was not faked. And you could tell by their emotions that happened. And it just blew me away. And shortly after that, I got him to send it to me. And I met a gentleman at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival in Tennessee. His name was R. Scott Nelson, and he's friends with Ron Moorhead, and he analyzes audio. And he did it, I believe he did it for the Navy for about 25 years. So I let him listen to it, and he immediately said, let me listen to that again. And he did. And he said, I'm going to give you my email and send this to me, please. So we corresponded back and forth for about 3 or 4 months. And he finally came to a conclusion, Joe, that the audio was not faked. And it was something that was not known by science as far as an animal or a creature. And I was just, him confirming that or affirming it. I already knew myself that it was not faked. And from where I'm sitting, it's a less than 1/10 of a mile from me where the audio was taken. Wow. And I thought, I told my wife, I said, I really want to do something with this. And I didn't know what to do. And had an idea I said, maybe a podcast possibly, because I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to people's stories. And asked a guy that I met at Expedition Bigfoot Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia, to try to do a podcast with me. And at the time he couldn't. And, I thought, well, maybe I won't do that. My wife's like, just, go ahead and do it by yourself. And so that's how I got to the spot I'm at now.
Well, cool, man. Well, I'm glad you're doing it, man. I see you. I found you on TikTok, and you've got some really great guests. It's a really great show. I think you got a really good format too. So keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. I think a lot of people really enjoy what you do. So yeah, just keep doing that.
I appreciate it.
So what? Yeah. So what was it that actually made you pull the trigger to say, okay, I'm going to do the podcast?
I guess maybe 2020. I guess back during COVID, I was helping one of my sons actually do some lawn care business, and so yeah, you have earbuds in while you're working, and during COVID, not a lot's going on anyway. It was just a weird time, but I would listen to podcasts and Bigfoot and Beyond with Cliff and Bobo.
Right.
Was one of the first ones I listened to, and I thought, it's pretty cool. So I, listened to that for a while. Had some other, favorite ones, Bigfoot Crossroads and so forth. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try this. And it's been a huge learning curve, but I like hearing stories, and I was in law enforcement for about a little over 4 years in my early 20s. So I like to ask questions and kind of not direct the story, but let the story kind of play out, but be inquisitive about it as I hear it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's pretty good, man. it was probably right around the same time that I started mine, and I think that was part of it. It was just I had nothing else to do. It was just kind of boring. So, yeah, I decided to start doing it. But yeah, I never really, really thought about it. But yeah, it was right about that same time, right around the COVID time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
was
you know
really.
what?
Go
And
ahead.
I do think I remember hearing that podcast took off right around that same time.
Yeah,
A lot
I
of
believe
people,
I've
yeah,
heard the same thing as well.
yeah, yeah. And so, this area, do you go out there much where you heard that recording?
We do some. Have heard some strange things um, since. Heard there are where I live is a lot of farmland, wooded as well. A lot of people plant, have pines where they plant for harvesting later on down the road, and just a lot of natural hardwoods and creeks. And but yeah, I have heard. We heard howls. My One of my grandsons, or he's like our grandson. He's about 12 now, but he had let the dogs out just recently and recorded something on his phone, and I still have it, but it's so faint. You can hear it, but it's so faint. You really can't enhance the audio or the vocalization itself to or I can't at least. But
Yeah.
I would like to get it listened to if possible or checked out. But it's a long sustained howl, and it's not a cow. Um, it's around here we have deer, bobcat, fox. Um, there are black bear, few and far between. And I have heard of mountain lion as well. I have never personally seen one. I have talked to some people that have witnessed one, decades ago, but I don't know what else would make that sound, that noise, that howl. It was pretty powerful, very interesting too. It was about 9 o'clock at night.
Wow. Okay. So previous to that recording that you heard, had you heard anything strange like that yourself?
No, I have not, and really not. I did not expect to hear anything,
Right.
and that's what just kind of blew me away about that recording. I just shook my head. I'm like, it was more than one. That is what I think, and that's what a few people think as well that have listened to it, because there's a whoop that's off in the distance, maybe 150 to 200 yards, but the guttural roar that we heard. Alan, the gentleman I had on that particular episode, and I want to go back and do one with him, a video, because that's back when I was doing audio. But I want to do a video, maybe a sit down with him, and you can just tell by the emotions in his face that it was something he's never heard, and I've never heard. And I just scratched my head and I said, why would I thought two, or maybe a family or a group of Sasquatch or Bigfoot come through here? And it just, I still go back and listen to it every so often because it's just, I don't know how many times I've played it. It's just really, really incredible recording.
What are your impressions of that vocal as far as like, why do you think he made that vocal?
He, his story is he had woke up around 2 a.m. Or so because he could not sleep. So he went out on his front deck of his house, and it's a wooden deck, and you can hear him walk out. But he had been out there previously to either smoke or just to get some fresh air, and then just I'm not real sure. He couldn't sleep, but he heard the first howl or whoop, and he walked back in to get his phone to see if he could record it. And when he walked back out, you can hear the door open. You can hear the front door open, and you can hear him walking on the wood. You immediately hear it's like a whoop. And about 15 seconds goes by, and you hear it almost sounds like a Louisville slugger hitting a oak tree. And he did not notice that until I brought it up to him during our episode. And it's either rock clacking or a wood knock. That's the only thing it could be. It makes no sense for that sound to be there, and it correlates with what was going on, So you had that, and then you had one more loud whoop or howl, and then you had, which was the closest one, and he told me, he said, Mark, it was about 50 yards from us. He said, it was so close. He said, if it had been daylight, I could have seen it. And it was just guttural and loud. And there was one whoop after that responding to that particular growl. And it's just so fascinating to me.
And have you yourself had any kind of like vocals, up close vocals, or even any kind of encounters?
Yes. It was in April, actually, and I have not done a podcast on it yet with a gentleman. And I've mentioned it a couple of times on a couple of episodes that I hosted. I have not gone into detail, but a guy I met with in North Carolina. He lives at the base of the South Mountains in North Carolina, which are the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And he invited me up to camp one night, and we did. And he's had activity on his property. A couple of videos he had sent me of a creature that was 2 feet taller than a particular fence. And we recreated that video, or stood where the creature was. And my head came, I'm almost 6 foot tall. My head came just to the top of the fence, maybe a little below, and whatever was standing there, he recorded, was about 2 feet above that. And it had a shape to it, somewhat top and shoulders, but you really couldn't tell much else because he had a spotlight on it, shining his spotlight and recording at the same time. But going back to you asking me about me encountering or having an encounter with vocalizations. We hiked that evening. I got there and went up a ridge line, came back down, and he had showed me a spot where him and some guys had a rock thrown at them. And it was a trail that goes back down the side of the ridge, back down towards the creek where we were camping. Well, we just were acting natural that night. No wood knocks, no howls, no whoops, no rock clacks or anything. And we had a small campfire. I had my tent set up. He had his set up. And at about midnight, from maybe a mile away, because it's really hard to tell the audio through the mountains, through where he lives, it just echoes. And we heard a long sustained howl, and we looked at each other and we're like, oh, wow, that was really interesting. And to preface this gentleman is experienced at Bigfoot research. He's been doing it for a while. And so about 2:00, or 1:30, we decided to, hit the tents. And I remember going to sleep about 2 a.m. And then about 4 a.m, Joe, it was 3 howls. And I don't want to say, I don't know what to say about Dog Man. I'm still kind of up in the air on that particular creature. But it was almost like a large dog or Bigfoot. I don't know, but it was 3 powerful, loud howls that were up behind us. And I said, hey, I said, are you up? He said, yeah. I said, did you hear that? He said, yes, I did. And sit there, and I'm going to be honest with you, Joe. I had my audio stuff with me. I had my night vision, and earlier, I'm going to back up just a second. Earlier that night, or earlier by the campfire, he heard something. So I kind of scanned the creek and the tree line behind the creek, and we caught eyes looking at us through my thermal. So I kept my thermal on the particular creature, whatever it was, and he walked behind me with a spotlight and shined exactly where the eyes were. And we did not see anything. And the spotlight did not light up a creature. So I stopped the video shortly after that. And I've got video of it. I just haven't done anything with it yet. The trip was kind of disturbing actually, but at about going back to the house. So I just laid my head back down to go to sleep, maybe 4:10 or 4:15. And I'm not joking. Across the creek or in the creek, or the creek was probably 15 yards from us, maybe 20. We both heard the deepest guttural growl that you could imagine. And the only thing I could find to compare it to online was a lion's roar or a lion's growl, a big lion. And it was extremely intimidating. I said, "Hey, did you hear that?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What do you want to do?" And recording anything was completely out of my mind. It was fear that took over. And, because I had a thermal, I had one camera, I had my phone as a camera and audio as well. And my intentions were to go up there to record stuff and do some audio recording and video recording. But we got out of camp shortly after that. We left. We packed up everything except our tents and said, "Let's go to the truck." And that's what happened. It was extremely intense. It was letting us know it was there.
Right.
And I think it was, I believe it was an intimidation type of thing.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah. And, I've been in a similar situation, me and my buddy Walter. And we got the hell out of there. And people were like, "Well, why do you go out there? Do you go, you go out there to get that experience?" And yeah, you're right. Right. They're right in saying that. And then it's like, but I want to be able to come back, and we got ran out of an investigation one night, and it was like, no, we got to leave. I don't want to, I don't know if I'll get banned for saying this or shadow banned, but I don't want my life to end out here. I want to be able to come back and keep doing this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I completely understand, and it, there's something to be said about being able to come back to this spot, to keep researching and to keep looking. I think it's kind of crazy. Well, I'm gonna stick around and see what happens. I'm not gonna do that. I love my wife. I love my kids. So there you go.
Exactly. I was this is Joe, no joke. At 4, when I laid my head back down after the first set of howls, I laid my head back down and prayed. I said, "Lord, just get us to daylight, and get us out of here. Help me make the right decision." And once I heard that guttural, or we both heard the guttural growl, just incredibly deep. I said, when I said, "What do you want to do?" I said, I don't even know if I gave him time to answer. Yeah. I said, "Let's go to the truck." So we packed up everything, like I said, except the tents, and got on out of there. And it was, he had heard, I'm going to back up a little bit. I did not hear it between 4 and 4:15. He heard what he sounded like to him was a something like it hit its chest, like maybe like an ape would do, kind of a hollow type of, but loud sound according to him. And I did not hear that. I may have just dozed back off, or either was fumbling around in my tent or something. But yeah, it was pretty intense late morning for sure.
Yeah, and I've actually heard people describe that sound too. So yeah, that's interesting that you would say that. That's one of those details that I don't necessarily dismiss, but I kind of put it in the back, So when I hear it again, I'm able to okay, well, I've heard that several times already, That's one of those little details that I kind of file
Right.
away.
Yeah.
So let's get back to your show too, man. What's one of your favorite witnesses that you've had on?
Oh, that's
And I know it's sometimes it's hard to pick because you don't want to sound like you're doing favorites, but
right.
Do you have one that you actually do like?
I've got a couple. Had on a gentleman, maybe the first of this year or end of last year. He's retired military in the Oregon, I believe. Well, maybe the Oregon National Guard, I believe, or Army Reserve. I can't remember exactly. His name's Todd Neese.
Oh yeah.
Had Todd on, and his story is pretty incredible. And to me, it's credible as well, because not only just because he's a retired military, but there were multiple witnesses, and as well. And they were on if you don't know Todd's story, or your listeners don't, he was on a military exercise in Oregon, kind of close to the coast. And they were driving in the Humvee, and he was the passenger in the Humvee, and they were doing blast. And of course, nobody's supposed to be on that particular property while they were doing exercises like that, because it was dangerous. And he said they rounded a curve, and there were three, not one, but three large, dark, hair-covered, muscular creatures standing on a hillside. And I remember him telling me, he said, Mark, he said, I looked for 25 seconds. He said, that's how long the encounter lasts. And he said, that does not sound like a long time. But he said, look at your watch or look at a clock. He said 25 seconds is quite a long time. And he got to see detail of the creatures. And he had a gentleman that was riding, I think, in the Humvee ahead of him, if I'm not mistaken. Got out of his Humvee. Todd walked back to try to see if he could get a glimpse of them, but you can only go so far because you cannot get out of sight of your other of the other military people, because they were doing an exercise that was so explosive exercise, a dangerous exercise. So you can't get out of sight. So he walked back as far as he could without losing sight of his team. And I think it was a sergeant of his walked back there towards him. He said, hey, what are you doing, Todd? And Todd said, well, I was just looking at something. He said, the sergeant said, you don't suppose you saw something back there, do you? And Todd said he was just so relieved to hear him ask him that, because he knew he was not the only one that saw it, or saw them. So he verified to Todd that, or confirmed, hey, we did see something back there. And I think there was one or two other people that eventually, I don't know if they came to Todd and told him, or he heard it, secondhand information, that saw the creatures as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember in detail Todd's story, but yeah, I've heard it a dozen times from him, actually, not just,
right.
Secondhand. But yeah. He's got one of the better stories. Like I said, he's a very credible person,
For sure.
And even at that Yeah, like at the time of his encounter, he was in the military. Do you remember if he reported that, or if they let him report it, or I don't remember that
I,
part though.
I don't. I don't think he reported it at the time. I think he got something, some kind of comfort, some type of letter later on down the road, or something related to that. I can't remember the details on that, Joe.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then I had one. I'll mention one more guest I had on recently, maybe 2 months ago. Gentleman from Tennessee that his story is he shot 6 times at a Bigfoot, and he said I know I had to hit it at least one of those times, and the creature took off running up a hill or up a ridge, and never stopped. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe it made any kind of noise either.
Right.
I don't think he found any evidence of any physical evidence that I'm aware of that particular incident. But it was really, for him, it was pretty intense.
I talked to a guy in Mississippi, and he shot one in the leg with a 30-30, and he said the thing didn't miss a stride. Just kept on walking, and then it was walking. And he said he saw it, scared the hell out of him. He didn't know what it was. He was a young kid at the time. I think he was like 13 or 14 years old. And he said, I shot it right in the leg with a 30-30. And he goes, it didn't stop. It didn't act like it hurt him at all. Just kept on walking.
Wow. They're from the stories that I've heard and everything, I've ever read, they're incredibly powerful.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
Creature.
Yeah. Some of my favorite stories come from the Humphreys, right? The guys at in Oklahoma, Hanobi or Hanobia, I don't know. Do you know their story?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, yeah. Look at I think it's called the Siege of Hanobia. It's I don't know. It was the Humphreys, Mike, and I can't remember his brother's name, but yeah, they've had some crazy encounters there. Where they actually shot one. Him and the dad shot one and put it down, and the rest came and grabbed it and took off with it. Yeah, and he said they went back there and he said it looked like someone took a 5-gallon bucket of blood and just threw it everywhere.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you gotta look that up.
I've got to check that out.
Yeah, the Siege of Hanobia is what it's called. It's one of the craziest out of Oklahoma, and that's where they have a big conference every year too.
Okay.
Do you cover any other cryptids?
I do, or I have. Mothman. Really like Mothman. That's one of my favorites, probably. And can I tell you a little story?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Okay. We were at Bigfoot Days in Estes Park, Colorado recently, back in April. And I met a gentleman the night before at a barbecue they were having. And I had one of my hoodies on that had unveiling the mysteries of the Mothman, if I'm not mistaken. And it had, some different things on it. And he said, let me ask you this. He said, what do you know about the Mothman? And we got to talking, and during the conversation, he said, let me tell you this. He said, I lived in Point Pleasant when the Silver Bridge collapsed. And I thought, oh, wow, that is pretty wild. And he said, my dad drove across the bridge just seconds before it collapsed.
Wow.
And I thought, that is just amazing. And I think I posted something maybe on TikTok or Instagram recently, my picture with him, and just hit, that story. And that's not an encounter. That's just, something I thought was really neat that you don't hear every day. So.
Exactly. It reminds me of a story. So a friend of mine that we grew up with, I say we, my brother, my sister, they lived down the street, maybe 4 or 5 houses down. They lived on the corner house. My sister calls me up one day. This was several years ago. She's like, hey, did you look at Becky's Facebook post? And I was like, no, And she goes, yeah, look at her post. And so I looked her up, and we're friends on Facebook. And she says, my mom had a bad stroke, and she can barely talk, and when she talks, you can't really like understand her. She goes, but she was sitting down watching Finding Bigfoot, right? When Finding Bigfoot was out. And she goes, and she started talking, just babbling on about Bigfoot. And she goes, and it was so good for us because she was finally like verbalizing stuff, right? And so she goes, we asked my mom, why are you talking about Bigfoot? And she said that when she was a little girl, where she grew up, there was always a Bigfoot that would come up to their house and look in the windows and stuff. And she goes, everybody knew about it. And, they were told as little kids not to be outside at night, come back inside the house. I said, wow, that's pretty cool. I said, because I knew him, for years and years and years, all through my early childhood, teenage years, and even after high school. Like I said, we grew up together. And her mom never said anything about this. And I said, when your mom has a good day, try to get more information from her. She goes, I will. But she wound up passing away shortly afterwards, so she didn't get a lot of stories from her. But she got some information that was so cool. And I said, where was your mom from? And she goes, she was from Fouke,
Oh, wow.
Arkansas. And they used to call that creature, what was it called?
Was it the Falk monster or?
No, they used to call it the Muddy Boggy Creek monster or something like that. I know they had muddy in it. The Muddy Boggy Creek monster is what they used to call it. And I was like, what? And I said, she goes, yeah, they live right along that, that creek, the Boggy Creek. I said, what the hell? I said, I never knew that about your mom. And even as a little kid through elementary, middle school, high school, I was so into this subject. And there was a lady down the street that I didn't even know had any kind of experience with this creature.
That's so crazy. It sounds like she just talked about it like it was just nothing, like it was, just normal.
Yeah, she was really excited to see it on TV. And, people from her generation, who do they talk to, about that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was really cool. I wish, I wish we could have gotten some stories from her, but, like I said, a few months later, she wound up passing away. But we got that little bit of information from her, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Really neat. Yeah.
Yes. Do you have any other favorite cryptids that interest you besides Bigfoot and the Mothman?
Yeah, I guess, I told you earlier, I'm not real sure about Dogman, it's kind of I'm almost lean towards, I guess, maybe the evil side with Dogman. I'm not real sure, but the encounters you've heard or we've heard, through stories, through documentaries and so forth. It kind of, to me, it's portrayed as that. Not, I guess, growing up, Nessie was one, but that was the Loch Ness Monster, of course, for people that don't know, but that's over in Scotland. And just had a gentleman that we become friends on Instagram. He lives in Scotland, and he had just sent me a video recently. He was at the loch itself and showing where some sightings were. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah,
pretty cool. But yeah, really, Mothman, Bigfoot, some UFO stuff. I've had a last summer had a really unusual light show up when we were camping. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff we kind of just, or I stay, focused on for the most part.
You have anybody on with the paranormal or anything like that?
I have had a couple of authors on that have written some books. Recently, Jessica Freeberg, she's written maybe 15 or 20 books, and she's had some experiences herself that her and her family actually moved. They moved from their home because of it.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, it was a really, really neat story. Yeah, she continued to see a lady crying in a bathroom floor in her house. voices, some other things like that. Pretty strange.
Have you had any kind of paranormal experience yourself?
uh, yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to say twice, maybe three times. Sometimes I try to push it into the back of my head. We were in, and this is so weird, Joe, that a lot of this stuff has happened since I've started this podcast. That's what's so, it puzzles me. But it was about a year and a couple of months ago. No, actually, it was in June of 2025. My apologies. Part of our kids' Christmas present was a trip, and we went to Niagara Falls. And usually when we go on a trip, whether it's me and my wife or whoever, if we go out of town, I try to find a diners, drive-ins, and dives episode from that town and try to go to that restaurant, because usually the food's pretty good, and I love food. So, but we found a place, and it was in Buffalo. It was in an older neighborhood in Buffalo, and we went there and we pulled up, and didn't think much about it. It's kind of, looking back, it was kind of dim, not very well lit, older house that was built, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the early 1900s. And it had been several things. I know it was a fire station at one time, and they had a lot of memorabilia from the fire departments around that area inside the restaurant. So we were sitting at the base, at the bottom of a staircase, and our waitress, I had asked her, I said, "What's the story with the place? Is there any weird things happen here or so forth?" And she wouldn't say anything really at all to begin with. Then she finally kind of warmed up to us, and she said, "Yeah, I'm going to tell you about this. I was upstairs, and we were at the base of at the bottom of the staircase from where she was talking about. It was like a banquet area upstairs. And she said, I was up there doing something, and the water came on in the bathroom. And she said, nobody was up there." And I thought, oh, interesting, So I thought, you know what? I got online, Googled ghost apps, or, ghost tracking apps, or infrared. I think it was thermal imaging, I think is maybe what I put in my phone. So I downloaded one, and I thought, do I really want to go up there? And I thought, yeah. I said, let's go up there and look. So myself, my wife, and one of our kids went up there, and we started walking around, and I screen recorded my session on the thermal imager on my phone. It was on my phone, so I screen recorded that so I could go back and look at it. And we walked around for about 3 minutes up there. Didn't hear anything. So we got home, and about a week later, I played it again. And I had played it 1 or 2 times before, but didn't probably go through the whole thing. And about a minute and a half into it, if I'm not mistaken, we heard this voice that said distinctly, "Get out of here."
Oh, wow.
Twice, "Get out of here." And when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, if I'd have heard that while I was up there, I'd have got out of there, like you said, or whoever said it. But it was, I let several people listen to it and send it to a buddy of mine, a friend of mine that does some paranormal, or used to do some paranormal stuff. And he was like, wow, it was very distinct. And so I went back and just tried to do history of the place. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the owners passed away there, or either died suddenly. That was kind of young. But I don't know. It was really strange. And I never published the recording. I thought, what do I need to do with this? Do I need to just get this off my phone or what? So, but yeah, after we heard that, we was like, wow, no way, that I can't believe that happened. And jumping forward to about 2 months ago, about 2 miles from where we live, there's a new subdivision being developed. And there's a cemetery right beside the subdivision, old cemetery. I did not know it was there. I have driven by this place for 40 plus years and never knew there was a cemetery there. And it was an old cemetery. I think some of the grave markers had late 1700s, early 1800s, if I'm not mistaken. And my daughter said, listen, she's history major in college. So she just likes history and things like that. So I cut on my thermal imager that I had, the app, and it started getting static immediately. And she heard it and turned around and looked at me and said, oh, no, cut that off now. And I recorded for just maybe another 30 seconds or so, and I cut it off. But it was getting static, like we were in Buffalo. I did not know what the static was while we were in Buffalo, but I guess it was energy or something. I'm not sure, Joe, but yeah, that's my couple of ghost hunting experiences, I guess you could say.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's still pretty cool. Yeah, I've gotten a couple of EVPs. You know, well, I won't say I did. My crazy ass kid got one in our house that we used to live in. It was very, very active house, and even now, there's still stories that come out of that house. My ex-wife lives there, and my kids tell me all the time that crazy stuff that happens there. But yeah, my son went into one of the rooms and he took my recorder that I take, out in the field to do my Bigfoot stuff, and he went in there and he asked, "Is there anybody here with us?" And he played it back. And you hear my son say, "Is there anybody here with us?" And you hear a voice go, "Yeah," just like that. And man, he came out of that room. I didn't know he had did it. It was like at midnight. My oldest daughter had seen a shadow go in that room. She was sleeping in there. That was her bedroom, and she came out to tell us about it. So my son went and grabbed the damn recorder, came out, went and did that, and he came out. He was white as a ghost. Just, Dad, you got to hear this. It was so funny.
That's pretty wild.
And then I've done a couple of investigations, paranormal investigations, and we had someone pick up a dog barking. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And then one of the girls, she was asking questions like, "Who's here?" and "Who's here?" And she heard, when she played it back, I forgot what she was asking, and you hear someone say, "Shut up." Yeah.
Wow. Joe, let me ask you this. What do you think, I'm going to transition or go back to Bigfoot if you don't mind for a second.
Go ahead. What
do you think about the news of the Patterson-Gimlin film being a hoax? Do you have an opinion of that yet without seeing the documentary?
I don't put a lot of stock into that. There were only two men that were there. That was, Patterson and Gimlin. They were the only ones that were there. Scientists from all over the world have looked at this video. Bill Munns, you know who Bill Munns is? I don't know if you know who he is. He's a director for Disney at the time, and he worked on the Planet of the Apes. He looked at it and he goes, "You know what? You absolutely could put a man in a suit. Not that good of a suit." He goes, "The suits that we had weren't near that good." And the reason why in the Planet of the Apes, that that late 60s, early 70s movie, the reason why they had clothes on was to hide all the zippers, the buttons, the pulleys, the extra flap of material. That's why they had clothes on, because they couldn't hide all that stuff. And he also said that when you look at the animals, or when you look at the creature on that film, the proportions from the shoulder to the elbows, from the elbows to the wrist, from the hip to the knees, and knees to the ankles don't match human proportions. They just don't, you've had people look at this video and analyze. You can see the muscle movement, and you can see it in the old grainy movement, the old grainy video before it was even enhanced. So I don't know why these guys are doing this. Every few years, people come out with this, and it's like, why? why do you need attention? And that's what I think it is. I think it's attention. And they might get mad at me. I don't care. I really don't.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That the gait seems so natural. The movements were just fluid, and
if these guys think it was a hoax, go recreate it. Go recreate it. No one's ever been able to recreate it. No one's ever been able to recreate that hoax. I mean, the walk and the stride. No one's ever been able to do that. I remember they had this one tall guy who was trying to walk with that. He almost fell over. He was, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Joe. That was a good point. That nobody's been able to recreate that at all.
I mean, even with today's technology, do it. I mean, these guys were poor ranchers. They had no money to make a suit like that. And if anyone made a suit like that, I mean, why stop there? Go to Hollywood with it. You would have made millions of dollars. You were well ahead of your time.
For sure.
One thing Bill Munns also said was, like I said, the length from the elbows to the wrist. In the newer Planet of the Apes with, Mark Wahlberg, they used those extensions on the inside where the actors had to, could hold it and walk with it. He goes, that was brand new technology for us, So you're talking, decades and decades later, someone finally figured out how to do that. Ray's come up with it and use it, So I don't know. It just irritates me to my soul when I see people come up with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Bob Givlin's story hasn't changed one single bit, So that's what I got to say about that.
I agree.
I'll go on all night. Piss a lot of people off, but yeah, man. We're coming up towards the end of the show, but I did want to ask you a few rapid fire questions, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Most underrated cryptid.
Ooh, most underrated cryptid. Oh gosh, you stumped me. Gosh, Joe.
Tough questions.
That is extremely tough. I'm gonna look at something real quick.
Go ahead. You probably got the same little book I got. I got a book over here on North American cryptids.
Oh,
I'm gonna tell you mine. Mine is the puck wedgie.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna probably say the Jersey Devil.
Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's actually a really good one.
Yeah.
What's your favorite cryptid?
Oh, it's Bigfoot, and Mothman is a close second.
Okay. Yeah.
Close second.
Mine's Bigfoot, and then close second is the Loch Ness.
Okay.
Yeah. Scariest cryptid.
Ooh, scary. Dogman.
Dogman. Okay. Yeah. See, I would say Dogman. And for whatever reason, I don't know if this falls into the cryptid category, but little people, when I hear those little stories, they kind of scare me a little bit,
That's creepy.
Yeah, woods or an abandoned asylum. Where would you want to investigate? Alone.
Alone?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Joe, that's a tough question. I'm going to say the woods.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one location you'd spend the night. If you could go to one location and spend a month there, where would you go?
On an investigation or just?
Yeah,
okay.
An investigation. Yeah. If you could spend a month there, where would you go?
Probably Northern California, Willow Creek, Humboldt County.
There you go.
The redwoods. It's so pretty there.
Okay. Yeah. You're right about that. I think I would probably choose the Big Bear Mountains. That's where I would go. It's beautiful there too, and there's a lot of stories come out of there too. So,
yeah. That's I guess that's the, Northern California. You got the Jerry Crew tracks, and then you got the Patterson Gimlin film. So that's a bucket list for me to go there.
Yeah. It's definitely a bucket list for me. I've been to Boggy Creek. I actually went to the Crabtree property. I went on the property.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. And I was
Is
probably one of the last people to go there because shortly after that, like 3 or 4 months later, they wound up selling it. I was one of the last people to go there.
am I wrong on this, or is the house torn down? Is it gone, or is it still
So
there?
when I went there, it was 2017. The Crabtree's house is still there. You're probably thinking of the Ford's property. That's where the
That's what
guy
I'm
got
thinking.
pulled off the porch, right? The garage itself at that time was still standing. The house itself was torn down, but the little garage right there is still standing. I took a picture of the side of the road.
Oh, that's
But
cool.
yeah, yeah,
That's really neat.
yeah, man. Yeah, if you don't mind, why don't you tell people where they can find you? Any kind of contact information you want to give out, whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, sure, Joe. Thank you. Yes, you can find me on YouTube at the Cryptid Crew Podcast, Instagram, the same, and TikTok, the Cryptid Crew Podcast. Those are my three, I guess, social media outlets. We try to post weekly on those short stories or what have you, and then try to do podcast and on Spotify as well, the podcast. But try to post a podcast once a week. Sometimes that does not happen, but for sure every couple of weeks we try to post something. Oh, Sandra, yeah, hey, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra, for tuning in. We do appreciate that very, very much. Yeah, everyone, go give Mark a follow. You guys aren't going to be disappointed. My camera keeps going in and out. Next week, tune in. I've got Don on the show from Don't Whistle in the Dark podcast. He'll be on the show next week. You guys need to tune in. He's got some scary stories. I'm sure he'll tell us. Mark, don't go anywhere. Hold on. And everyone else, thanks a lot for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Like I said, I'll be doing this every Sunday around this time, 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. So you guys tune in. Mark, you have anything to say?
No, Joe, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Hold on real quick.